All the Mods 9 is objectively one of the best mod packs ever made and is certainly one of the most popular mod packs across the board. One of the most critical structures in order to allow yourself to progress in All the Mods 9 is a mob farm. It allows you to get experience and a whole lot of items in a very quick and efficient fashion. Today I want to walk you through step by step exactly how I built the mob farm that I used to help me get the All the Mods star, so that way you can do it for yourself as well. Let's do it! Alright, so what you see here is the exact outline that I used. This is a 15 by 15 block square on the outside and has an interior diameter of 13 by 13 blocks. You'll notice that there are 4 2x2 pillars, and then there's also a block in the center. Now what we're going to do is we are going to stack up our spawners on top of each of the 2x2 pillars, and then any specialty spawners we're going to have on the center one. Now over here on the left, I came out and dug out a 3x3 square. This is where our mob mashers are going to go. And then we're also going to put glass in front, and then we're going to set up kind of a control center in the front as well. So this is sort of the top-down view of how it's going to look. Let's continue on and keep building this. Now it's important to note for each one of these pillars of spawners, we're going to want to have them raised up by at least 3 blocks. We're going to have 3 blocks of height, so that way taller mobs like withers or endermen, or like the Dead King from Iron and Spells, those mobs can go directly underneath these spawners without hitting their heads and getting stuck. Alright, so we've built up all of the bases, so right on top of these blocks is where we're going to put the spawners. Let's go ahead and finish up the outside of this mob spawner. Now when determining how tall to make your mob spawner, the only thing that really matters is that you're going to have enough room for whatever spawners you're going to want in between this base that we've set down and 2 blocks down from the top of the mob spawner. Because you don't really want your mob spawning on top of this entire structure. You also want to make sure that they're not going to die when they fall. So there's a balance there somewhere. I try to keep this within about 10 to 15 blocks. All right, now for this little admin center here, where we're going to have all of the mobs eventually end up and die, and then we're going to collect all of the materials here. What we're going to do is we're going to make this about a 3x3 structure. So we're already 3 across. We want to come 3 up, and then we are going to extend a roof over the top right here, and the height of this is predetermined by the fact that we want the withers and the endermen and all of the mobs that are taller than a 2 block to be able to fit through it. So since a player is a 2 block, they can fit through this. Endermen would have to be taller. We need it 1 block higher so that they can fit right inside of here. Once you've got that finished, I usually like to put some glass across the front of this. That way you can see in and you can see what's going on in there. So that is the finished admin center. Let's finish up making the walls. Also, if you're not using the building tool in All the Mods 9, you're doing it wrong. It literally makes your life so much easier. Highly recommend using it. All right, so we've built up 13 blocks here. All we're going to do is on the 13th block up, we're going to build a roof on it. Generally, I like to put a trapdoor in here somewhere so that way it's a little bit easier to get in and out. Because we will be needing to get in and out of this thing quite a bit to allow us to modify the spawners as we place them. So the next thing we need to do is set up some vector plates so that way we can push all of the mobs that are spawning inside of this room to the admin center. That way they automatically get pushed to the end, get killed, and we collect all of the materials from them. Now, like I said, we're going to be doing this through vector plates. There are 4 different levels of vector plates, and each one progressively gets faster. The green is the base level of vector plates, the yellow is the fast one, red is extreme, etc. Now, I've always found that the green ones are a little bit slow for my liking and the red ones are a little bit too fast. I tend to go with the yellow ones, so that's what we're going to do here. Now, because this room is a 13 by 13 interior diameter, we're going to need 169 of these vector plates in order to fill out the room and make sure that there's no space where mobs can spawn and stay. We're also going to need an additional 3 to place in front of the mob mashers right here. So in total, you need 172 of these yellow vector plates. Now to place them down, all you have to do is crouch and then be looking the direction that you want the arrow to be pushing. So in this case, we want it to be going forward. So we're crouching and then looking forward. Now after these first 2 levels, we're going to be pushing some to the side so that we can, just before we get to the very end of the room, have everything start to push to the middle. So for instance here, we start looking to the right. We will have them all point to the right. Now, personally, I like to sort of stair step this, so that way the closer they get to the opening, the more likely they are to be already in the middle of the room. So I tend to go in by about 2 blocks each time, and then as we get closer, more of the arrows will be pushing towards the middle, and less will have to push them towards the end of the room. So just like this, we staircase it, step down by 2 each time, and then by the end, everything will be pushed to the middle of the room, and we can push it all directly into the mob mashers. All right, with all of the left and right arrows done, everything else is just pushing straight. So we're gonna go ahead and get those set up, and then we can start looking at the rest of this build out. All right, so we finished placing down all of the vector plates. If you want to test and see how they work, really all you have to do is stand on them. And as you can see, they'll throw you all exactly where we want all of the mobs to end up in the long run, which is inside of here where we're gonna put the mob grinders. All right, so next let's look at how to set up the mob grinders here in the front area. So the utility we're going to be using to actually grind the mobs to kill them, and then we're going to be collecting all the materials from that, is called the mob masher. Now, this can be upgraded. It costs quite a bit of iron because you have to make a large number of iron swords, but I find that it's the best utility for this. So let's show you how to set it up. The only thing that the mob masher really needs in order to run is a redstone signal. My preference for this is just to use the redstone glass here at the bottom, create a little 9x9 square, and each one of these will send a redstone signal. So all I have to do, jump up here on the vector plates. If I hit control, it doesn't send me anywhere. And then I can set each of these down. And as you see, they just run. So you can use the redstone glass. The downside of this is there's not a way to turn it off and on. You can use a redstone link or a switch hooked up to redstone directly linked to all of these. There's a lot of different ways to do it. I find this is the easiest just because it's easier to set these things on top of the glass and you don't have to worry about anything else. All right, now like we mentioned, these things are upgradable. If you look here, you can see a list of all of the upgrades that are available. You can set mobs on fire, smite, arthropods, beheading. The ones that I always do, you can do a maximum of 10 of the looting upgrades and a max of 10 of the sharpness upgrades. I generally make 10 for each of the mob mashers that I put down. So in this case, we'd have 90 of the upgrade for looting and 90 of the upgrades for sharpness. All you have to do is right click one of these, put 10 in each. All right, so with all of that out of the way, now let's look at the best and most efficient way to actually collect all of the XP and materials that you're going to be getting from these mob mashers. All right, so if you look down at my hotbar, this is everything you need in order to set up a quick and efficient collection system for your mob farm. What we're going to start with in the center, we're going to set down a backpack right here. Now this backpack is going to have the following 3 upgrades. We're going to have an advanced magnet upgrade to pick everything up. We're going to have a tank upgrade in order to collect all of the experience that's going to be on the ground. And then we're going to have a stacking upgrade. So that way for all of the materials that we're going to be getting, all of the, your spider eyes, your rotten flesh, things like that, it won't stack up quite as quickly because it can stack up to, I believe that's 256 rather than just a 64 stack. So we're going to put all 3 of those upgrades directly into the netherite backpack. Then we're going to use 2 universal pipes coming out from the backpack to 2 separate things. Now the first thing, we're going to set the universal pipe down, use a pipe wrench on the side with the backpack, right click so that way it's drawing out of the backpack. We're going to set an experience crystal down right here. So what this is going to do is it's going to take all of the experience that the netherite backpack collects and it's going to directly pump it out to the experience crystal and it'll store it here. The reason you want to do this is because the experience crystal can store an incredible amount of XP versus the backpack that can only store up to 6,400 millibuckets, however much that actually translates out to as far as XP. Point being, the experience crystal can store a lot more of it. It also has a nifty UI. If you right click on it, you can retrieve all the levels directly from here, so you don't have to worry about the rest of it. All right, now on the other side, we're also going to be exporting from the backpack, but we're going to be exporting into an ender chest this time. And on this side, you're going to want to have this hooked up to whatever your storage system is. So what this is going to do is it's going to collect all of the materials, all of the items, collect them into your backpack, and then pump it directly out to your ender chest. Now, I will say there are a couple things that you might think about in relation to this setup. And the first is actually putting some sort of filter in place here so that way it doesn't just send everything to your system. Specifically, if you are using an AE2 storage system or an ME storage system, there are a lot of individual items that can add up very quickly. So each sword with a different durability can't stack, so it's considered a single item. And ME specifically has issues where there's a limitation for the total number of individual items that can be stored in that system, so you can fill it up really quickly. What I would do is I'd throw an advanced pipe upgrade in here, set this to whitelist, and that way anything you actually want to send into your ME system, like the materials that you're actually trying to collect, you add right in here. All you have to do is click add. You can put the item itself in there and it'll tell you what it is, click submit, and then now all of those items, since they're whitelisted, will be going through this pipe directly into whatever your storage system is. Now, I've tried to do the reverse of this and do a blacklist and just blacklist all of the tools and armor and bows and anything like that that could be individual. The problem is in All the Mods 9, there are so many individual items that it is almost impossible to completely blacklist all of the different random backpacks and chest plates and leggings and everything like that that you're going to get. And some of the things always slip through the cracks. So if you just whitelist what you want to keep, and then the rest of it stays in there, or you can pump it out to a trash can or something like that, it's sort of the best setup that I've come up with. All right, so this right here is basically the finished admin setup. We're going to be adding a lever and a redstone link here in just a second, but we're getting really close to where we want to be. The next step is to actually go find the spawners that we're going to want to use for this mob spawner. Now, there are two ways that I usually do this, and the first is the easiest. I go find one of the dungeons in the overworld, and I'm going to go find one of those in just a second to show you what they look like. Option number two is if you have access to the other and you find one of the dungeons in the other, I believe is what they're called, the ATM dungeon. They have mob spawners that have faster spawn rates than you can even modify the current spawners to. So I would highly recommend getting those. And then if you want to change what's spawning from them, all you have to do is add an egg. If you're using a structure compass, what you're going to want to look for is these dungeon crawl dungeons. Now, these are the guys that have the spiraling staircases down, have different levels of mobs, and also have a very, very substantial number of mob spawners. So I'm going to go down here real quick just to show you what we're looking at. So this is what they'll generally look like when you get down here. You got to open some of these up. You're going to run through several different levels. The first several levels will have a lot of mob spawners on them, and these mob spawners are very easy to get because the mobs that you're going to be fighting on this level, very, very easy. Very not difficult mobs by any means. It's also worth mentioning that in order to pick up these mob spawners, you will need a pickaxe that has silk touch on it. So I would also recommend getting one of the indestructible ones from the All the Mods set. If you don't use an indestructible pickaxe, they will lose durability very quickly. So again, recommend using one of the Aldomodium ones that, you know, have the indestructible feature on them, and also just grab as many of these spawners as you can. So again, the spawners that you're going to find in the dungeon crawl dungeons are not super strong spawners. They're going to have a little bit longer of a spawn time, and they're also not going to spawn as many entities as the ones that you might find in the Aldomodium dungeon in the other dimension. Those will work very, very quickly. So this is effectively what we're going to do. We're going to take the spawners that we get, we're going to set them on top of these platforms, and then once we have some there, we're going to go through and destroy the platforms on the bottom. So what that allows us to do is basically spawn as many of these mobs as we want on this pylon, and then all of the mobs will still be able to go underneath and eventually go to the mob meshers that we have set up. Now, for most of the spawners that you're going to get out of either the dungeons or the other, they're going to already have mobs assigned to them. But if you want to change that, you can. All you have to do is get the mob spawn egg for whatever mob you want to spawn and right click it onto one of these spawners. Now, there's a couple different ways to get the spawn eggs. You can find a lot of them in the chests, in just normal caves and stuff like that. Or you can create the spawn egg by using what's called a mob swab on the mob itself, and then using that mob swab to create some sort of feed for a chicken, and then the chicken explodes and gives you the egg. It might seem a little bit complicated, but it really is just as simple as that. You craft a mob swab, use it on the mob, take that, create a feed with it, feed it to a chicken, and then the chicken gives you the egg. So before we get too far in, let's take a deeper look at how to adjust these spawners per whatever you want. So if you were to look at one of these spawners and you crouch, you can see the minimum spawn delay, the maximum spawn delay, and all the rest of the stuff there. So let's say, for instance, we're trying to set up a blaze spawner. What we're going to want to do is shift and right click the egg onto the spawner itself, and you'll see that that will start spawning the entity, the blaze. What we also want to do is use these 4 following upgrades on this spawner in order to better control it. But if we use the golden apple on the spawner, that will completely turn off the AI for this spawner, which means that the blazes will spawn, but they will no longer have the AI enabled to fight or do anything like that. So they will sink straight to the ground and go straight into the mob mashers. We next want to use the conduit on this. And all the conduit does is it disables the need for you to be nearby the spawner in order for mobs to spawn from it. Next, we're going to use a redstone comparator on the spawner, which basically just means that it is now redstone activated, which means all we have to do is send this spawner a redstone signal and it will start spawning. This allows us the ability to turn on and off this entire mob grinding facility. And then finally, last but not least, we're going to be using a dragon egg on each one of these. All that does is it allows it to ignore any conditions that this mob may have for spawning. So it'll just spawn no matter what. So these 4 are the essential modifications that you have to make to each one of these spawners. Now also, if you want these mob spawners to be quiet, what you can do is you can add wool as a modification to each one of them, and that will effectively turn off any noise that the mob might make. This one isn't necessarily essential, but man, it's nice to have. All right, so next up, as you can see, these mob spawners are now all turned off because we made them to where they have to have a redstone signal in order to be turned on. And we did that intentionally. What we're going to do is we're going to go down one side of this and we're going to add these redstone link. And then we're going to add a special block to one of these frequencies, either the red or the blue. And then we're going to take this wrench and we're going to set these all to receive. So you can see they have a little antenna and it puts this little white circle around that antenna if they're set to receive. Make sure they're all set to receive. And then outside, what we can do is right here, place the lever down. Next to the lever, we're going to add the redstone link. We're not going to take it to receive, so that way it sends. And then we're going to put the cyan wool back into the same location, so that way it's sending to the same group. From there, all we have to do is turn this on. It powers this redstone link, which then powers up all of the spawners on the inside. So the redstone link will power the closest 3 items to it. So this back aisle here will not be powered. So we'll have to go through and do the same thing here. And then you can see that all of these blazes are spawning. And once we have all the towers here, they won't land on the rest of the pylons bases that we have set up. And then they're being sent directly into the mob masher, which is then collecting all of the blaze rods and everything like that in here, and will eventually push them out. And is also collecting all of the XP right here for us. Now, what you can tell is, I mean, the sound is still on, right? But this is completely silent because we use the wool modifier on each of these spawners as well. So this is the basic concept that I use. I'm going to go ahead and finish building out the rest of this mob spawner just so you can get an idea of how many spawners you can realistically fit in there. And then we're going to go through a couple final modifications you can make to make this mob spawner even better, faster, and more efficient as you progress further on in the game. To give you an idea of what I was talking about earlier, if you're going to be using any sort of wither skeletons or endermen, you're going to want to have the spawners at least 3 blocks high. For this reason exactly, they get caught on anything less than that. So make sure to do 3 blocks high and you should be good to go. Now this middle block here, I generally reserved for something, you know, that was like a special spawn, something different like the Dead King or the Undead Knights that you get from the Nether. Either one of those I tended to put in this middle spot. You can use it or not, it doesn't really matter, but there is room for it there if you need it. You can also set it up with a different color for the redstone link. So instead of cyan wool, you use any other block like a cobblestone or a stone or something like that. Link it up here, put another lever and a sending signal from the outside. That way you can just turn on and off the center pylon instead of the outside one. But for now, we'll go ahead and delete that. We don't really need it. So to give you an idea, these are all base level spawners. And if we turn this on, because of how many are there, you can see these guys come in incredibly quick. It's all super quiet and silent. All of the XP goes right here. And then currently this is filling up with, like I was saying earlier, all of those single items that show up in here. So what we're going to do to alleviate that is, instead of sending it all to a chest, because I don't actually need any of these items, I'm just trying to show you how to do it, we're going to pump all those out to a trash can. All right, now that we've got all that set up, let's talk about a couple final adjustments that we can make to all of these mob spawners to make this work even faster and more efficiently. The 3 that I would recommend doing once you have the materials to do it is allthemodium, unobtainium, and gas tiers. So what the allthemodium will do is it will decrease the minimum time delay. So the minimum it has to wait before spawning another set of entities. The unobtainium will decrease the maximum spawn delay, which means the maximum time it could wait before spawning another set of entities. And the gas tier is going to increase the number of entities each spawn will spawn. So to give you an idea, if we come and look at, let's say, this top left spawner here, we can see that the minimum spawn delay is 200 ticks. So it has to wait at least 200 ticks before it spawns another set of blazes. So if we use the Altimodium on here, we use it until it stops going, we check again, it's now down to 100. Yeah, so like I was saying earlier, if you get the spawners out of the ATM dungeon in the other, their delays are going to be less than what you can even modify it down to. So this spawner right here, I've gone ahead and maxed out. So the Altimodium brings it all the way down to a 100 tick minimum spawn delay. The Unobtainium brings it down to a 100 tick max. So every 100 ticks, it's going to spawn something. And then the gas tier increased the max number of entities all the way up to 16. So this one right here could spawn a very large number of blazes very, very quickly. I'm going to go ahead and max out this entire pylon real fast just to give you an idea of what this will actually do for you. And then I'll show you what the effect of that is. All right, so that was taking way too long. I ended up only upgrading half of that pylon. So just remember, when we turn this thing on, there's half a pylon worth of normal spawners with blazes, half with the upgraded, and then 3 full pylons of all the other mobs spawning. What you're going to see is that the blazes are going to spawn insanely quickly because they have a max spawn delay of 100 ticks. And they're going to spawn up to 16 blazes every single time one of those spawn events occurs. So if you take a look, these spawners are absolutely putting in the work. It's incredibly efficient. It works very, very well. So from here on out, all you really have to worry about is this mob spawner absolutely lagging the heck out of your game, because it will do that, because there are a very large number of items that are dropping on the ground all at once that have to be picked up in the backpack and then pumped off to the trash can. There's also a lot of effects going on inside of there, a lot of particles that have to be rendered, but you'll see you get levels incredibly quickly by doing this. Incredibly silent, you don't have to worry about all the noise. So that right there is exactly what I would recommend doing for an ultimate mob spawner in All the Mods 9. If you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.